We are Community Radio Kilkenny City 88.7 FM.
You're listening to the Woman to Woman Show with Roisin Ni Chleirigh. You can text us on 086 353 7782. Good afternoon. You are tuned and listening in to the Woman to Woman Show here on Community Radio Kilkenny City. A huge thank you to Don Devlin for keeping us all upbeat and in the feel-good factor with his music this afternoon. I am presenting and broadcasting the show remotely from home, and Mick Cummings is driving the desk and on the technical sound back at studio in Community Radio. On today's show, I will be speaking to Lisa Mullins from Amber Women's Refuge around 4:30 this afternoon, and we will be highlighting that Amber Women's Refuge is still open for women and children escaping domestic abuse and violence, along with the upcoming much-needed fundraising events. Many of our regular listeners are aware that the Woman to Woman Show here on Community Radio are thanking as many frontline heroes as possible during this COVID-19. Our frontline workers, from cleaners, hospital reporters, the media, catering staff, bin men, postmen, retail and pharmacists, and local organisations who are still open, and local businesses who are offering up their services free for frontline workers during this pandemic. This week, we are speaking and thanking our amazing local civil defence who are doing Trojan work and working in the front line, assisting the Gardaí, the HSE, local authority in cases of major emergencies, and supporting the community-based activities with medical cover and safety boats. On the line now, I have the wonderful, amazing lady who is some woman for one woman, and who is the Civil Defence Officer, Katherine Peacock.
Hi, Roisin. That's some introduction. Thank you.
But Katherine, I think a lot of people would agree with me. You are some woman for one woman.
Oh, wow. How do I respond to that? Thank you. Yeah.
And you know me,
Catherine,
you know me too well. I wouldn't say if I didn't mean it.
Thank you.
Katherine, as you know, the Woman to Woman Show, we are taking the opportunity to personally thank you and each and every one of your 28 volunteers who work with you in our local Kilkenny Civil Defence here in Kilkenny. And I want to chat and find out a little later on about all the roles and responsibility the Civil Defence is doing so diligently in our front line during this coronavirus pandemic. But first, maybe you could tell me and the listeners who may not know who the Civil Defence is and what you do.
Okay, well, the Civil Defence is a voluntary-based organisation, so I'm the only person that's employed by the local authority and the Department of Defence to run the organisation. So everybody else that's in it is giving up their time voluntary to, I suppose, be a practical humanitarian assistance to the principal response agencies and the local community in lots of different areas. So flood response, medical, transport, search and rescue, and that's with boats and on the land. We also do radiation monitoring, so that's a national programme for the Environmental Protection Agency. So there's lots of different areas that the Civil Defence are involved in.
And Katherine, you know, you are on call 24 hours a day as well.
Yes, I am. So my phone is actually glued to my hand. We will respond at any time, any day, to like one of those emergencies. So if it's a major emergency, we can be called out by whoever the lead agency is, whether that's the HSE, as in the COVID, or if it's the local authority, the Gardaí, the fire service. So, you know, obviously it is volunteer-based, so it is dependent on the availability of people as to what level of response we can give. But, you know, so far to date, there always has been a response.
And Katherine, can you tell us, you have 28 volunteers?
Yes.
And you were telling me earlier on, because I was looking up and I was amazed, that you have 28 volunteers, and yesterday your volunteers in all in one day supplied 21 hours of their time to work as a volunteer for Kilkenny for the Civil Defence.
Yeah, we actually gave 26 hours of volunteer hours yesterday. It was to be honest, it was kind of a normal day in the current climate. We are getting numerous calls. Today has been a particularly quiet day for us. yesterday was a busy day, the day before was busy. We never know what's going to happen, so therefore you're always asking people to be ready and available should the need arise.
And Catherine, what is your roles and responsibility as civil defence during the frontline workers during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay, well, because we have training in so many different areas, it really varies as to what we're asked to do. Predominantly, we have been relied on for transport. So that's transporting people to COVID test centres, to assessment hubs, that's the COVID assessment hubs where they can see a GP, also to non-COVID GP appointments, transport to hospital appointments, either by just purely transport or ambulance transport. We've collected people that have been discharged from hospitals and taken them home by ambulance from, Waterford Hospital, from Kilkenny Hospital, from Dublin hospitals, and we've also transferred people by ambulance to those hospitals as well. So, there's a lot. We've also, right in the beginning, we were asked by the HSE to set up a test centre, which we did. And then due to the change of the testing criteria at the time, that was stood down. We've assisted in setting up isolation centres. We've delivered care packs to vulnerable families. We've picked up homemade masks in the community and dropped them at nursing homes. It is a variety of things. I suppose predominantly based around transport, though.
Yes, and you have your own civil defence vehicles as well.
We do. We have quite a lot of equipment. We have 4 4-wheel drives. We've got a minibus. We've got some vans. We've got a communications vehicle. Obviously our boats. So there is a lot of equipment. There's a lot of investment in civil defence nationally. So not only do we have the volunteers, the training, and the vehicles. It's a full package. So if you call on civil defence, you don't have to supply them with anything in order to get the job done.
You have everything that you need at your disposal. But wow, I'm just amazed because although I've known you for years and I knew you were in the civil defence, I never had the time, or I always put it on the long finger, what is the civil defence? And so I want to go back to what is your one woman band, and as I said, you're some woman for one woman, and especially in this role as you're the only paid member of staff to actually be a member of the civil defence. But what is your role as a civil defence officer?
It's one of coordination, really. So I'm responsible for everything from taking in the duties and in light of COVID, the taskings, to organising the training plans, to making sure the equipment is up to standard and is regularly checked, to doing the accounts, everything. It's a complete department within the local authority, and everything that falls into it is my responsibility.
And you're on 24-hour call as well.
I am. So, you make me sound like I don't have a life here, Rosa.
So that's your responsibility. The volunteers, tell me about these amazing 28 volunteers that you have working with you.
Well, they come from every background, every age. You can join civil defence from the age of 18, and we have some 18-year-olds, and can I just say, they really... They put 18-year-olds into an amazing light. So, when people talk about the younger generation, can I just say that there are plenty of young people out there that, don't fall into this stereotype that they're portrayed as. They're incredible, and their dedication and their level of training is amazing. And then we have people, you can join civil defence right up until, the age of 70 and contribute. So, it's varied what people can give. I mean, obviously there's a lot of time involved in this because our training is it's all proper training that is certified at national and international levels. So that takes a long time. So anybody thinking about joining civil defence, we don't just stick you into a vehicle or give you a boat and away you go and good luck with that. It's very much, it takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication and a lot of discipline and learning. So all of these people have given so much to their community. And as you said, not a lot of people know about the civil defence, which I think is really quite sad, because it's always been there. It's been there since 1950.
Yeah, because I was amazed when I researched that.
And it's been in every county in Ireland since then. And originally it was set up under the threat of nuclear war, and it was more of the humanitarian to help people in times of real crisis. So we still, going back to that time, still have the radiation monitoring since then. So yeah, it's a huge organisation with 3,500 members right across Ireland who are doing incredible work, on a regular basis.
And when you say members, that's volunteers, is it?
Absolutely, yes.
Isn't that amazing?
I consider them a member of the family here. But yes, they are volunteers. And that's what we need to remember. They have given up so much by being a volunteer in the civil defence, so much of their own time, and that's not just the training. They can be called out. Most of our calls for search and rescue happen at night time, and I will get the call at whatever time of the night, and I will make the call to volunteers, and they will get out of their beds, and they may be going to work the next morning, but they'll still come.
I just think that's astonishing, and it's very proud when you hear this about what people in our country is doing and in our own locality.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Ireland relies heavily on volunteerism, as many countries do, but economically, I don't think it can be counted what volunteerism gives to a country.
Well, I think our manager, Declan Gibbons, would agree with you on that when we here have over 100 volunteers in community radio. But, we're not on 24-hour call. And so Declan Gibbons, I know, and everybody here at Community Radio will understand and appreciate exactly what you're saying. So you talk about training. What training is involved for the volunteers? Okay, so
we're multidiscipline trained. So medical would be a big one because we do an awful lot of events in the community. So in order to keep our skills, I suppose, we'll take on probably 40 duties throughout the year. So that's weekends and evenings, where we'll go along to a fun day, a field day, a big organised race, and we'll be the first aid people on call for that duty. And for that event, we do obviously the transport. We don't just let somebody get into a vehicle. They have to have their licence for a minimum of 2 years, be over the age of 21. They then will go on. We've all been on off-road driving courses. We'll then look at specific tasks that we do. So our boats, it's not easy to reverse a big boat down a slipway. So we'll give people specific training around that as well. So there's an awful lot to something that you think is quite simple in terms of jumping into a vehicle. The search and rescue, we have dedicated certified search courses. We have to be very mindful if we're called out by the Gardaí for a search that it's done in the correct way and nothing is disturbed that shouldn't be. The boats, it takes a long time to become a coxswain on a boat, and they have to go and do their power boating courses, but they also have to have a minimum of hours on the water under instruction apart from the certified course, before they can become a coxswain. We have the radiation monitoring. Somebody had to go away and do a course in that as well. There's so much communications. So we have different radios for different places and different ranges and frequencies, and that takes a lot of training as well. So what happens is our volunteers become instructors. So they get trained to become instructors, and a lot of our training is done then at a local level by those instructors to the volunteers locally. We also have courses. There's a civil defence college in Rosscray. and that college will do some of the higher level courses. But we also, travel around the country and do courses, and bring instructors in from other countries to do courses with us. So it's very involved.
And I'm just amazed, but especially the training. That's amazing training.
Yes, it is. It really is. We live in an age of regulations and operating procedures, and we have to abide by all of those procedures. So, I cannot allow somebody to do something that doesn't have training for it. Right down to, I can't give you a uniform and let you out the door until you have specific training done. So yeah, it's there's an awful lot to it.
Yes, and getting back to the front line, and how are your volunteers? How are you, especially? We'll get to the volunteers. How are you managing working on the front line and being the one-woman band, apart from your volunteers?
Well, to be fair, I've been very lucky, as all civil defence officers have. For the period of COVID, we've been granted an assistant from our volunteer group, who has become a paid assistant for this crisis. So I do have some help through this. How am I? Well, I suppose the biggest challenge for me is when a duty comes in, is making sure that I have the right person with the right training and the right equipment in order to do that successfully and safely, and in the best interest of both the volunteer and the person or persons that they're assisting. So my head is constantly back and forth between, how do I organise that? What's the best way to do this?
How are you at the moment sort of clearing your mind and just getting any kind of clearing the head do this?
I suppose the nature of this crisis is that our requirements are generally throughout the day. So that's good. I seem to have a lot of my own free time in the evening times. So I get home and I take a walk every night. I've got 2 lovely children and a lovely husband and a dog. And generally I'll pick 1, 2, 3 or 4 of them and say, we're going for a walk. And that's what I do. I live near a river. So I sit there and I look at the river, and that just kind of lets me recharge again.
Yeah, recharging and just getting your mental and emotional strength as well, because you're very physically strong. And how are your volunteers, the wonderful 28, and I don't say that lightly, the 28 volunteers, how are they coping through the COVID-19 and working in the front line?
Yeah, they're brilliant. Not every one of the volunteers can respond to this, for the reasons they may themselves be cocooning. Some are still working from home, so it's more difficult for them to meet the challenge during the daytime. And I don't say this lightly, that's equally as hard for them, because they want to be here. It's very difficult for them to be trained to do something and to be the type of person that wants to help and then hasn't got the opportunity of doing that. So I can just imagine the frustrations of some people. And there's others then that we're calling on more because they have a higher level of medical training. And, you can appreciate that if we're picking up somebody that's had a serious operation in a hospital and taking them home, then we're doing that with the highest level of medical care. So we're relying more on some people. And then there's others that, just want to give and give and give. And, you've got to say, well, hang on a second, it's my job to try and mind you in all of this as well. So you're pulling them back. So, but they're all very much like me. They have a mindset that they want to assist people. So I suppose they're getting something from this as well.
And yes, and what challenges have you sort of encountered during your frontline work?
The biggest challenge, I suppose, is making sure that I have the right information before I make a decision on whether we can do the task. And once I accept it, that I know exactly what's involved in this task so that I send the right people and I send the right vehicle, because that's so important. And, I'd love to give you an example of that, but, I don't want to talk about specific cases because it's not fair to people, but, there have been times when I've gone, thank God I chose that way, because it could have gone very wrong if I hadn't, and that's a real challenge because you don't always get all of the information. You're relying on information coming from other agencies, and they might not think to ask the questions that you need the answers to. So very often I will phone, well, in fact all the time, I will phone whoever it is that we're doing something for and ask all of my own questions and before I make a decision. So that's been my challenge, is to not jump in and say yes before I know all of the facts, because by nature we all just want to help.
Well, Katherine, I know you for many a year, since the early 2000s. I can actually say, the Civil Defence have the right woman in the right job at the right time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And it's true, and all your volunteers are lucky to have you, because you will always look after your team. You're diligent, and you always give not just 100%, but 1,000,000% to whatever you're doing.
Thank you, Roisin. Well, look, I'm lucky too. I have people here that want to be here and want to assist, so that always makes your job easier.
Well, Katherine Peacock, on behalf of the Woman to Woman show here at Community Radio Kilkenny City and all our staff and volunteers and the board, we'd all like to say thank you to you and all your 28 volunteers. Thank you for your COVID-19 service. It will not be forgotten.
Thank you, Roisin.
And, stay well, stay safe, and hopefully we'll have you all in studio at the end of all this the situation that we're all in. We'll all keep a positive mindset that, we'll all get back to normal some way at some time.
We will, and we might find a new and a better normal where, actually there are more people that are caring for each other.
Exactly, Katherine, exactly. Well, our best wishes here from my home to your home, and from the show to all your colleagues in the Civil Defence and the County Council. Thank you so much indeed. And Katherine, we'll talk to you very soon. And Katherine, will you keep us updated on anything that you think maybe here at the Community Radio, what you would like to get out there?
Absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Katherine Peacock, Civil Defence, thanking you and all your volunteers for your COVID-19 service.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Woman to Woman show with Roisin Ni Chleirigh. You can text us on 086 353 7782.
Broadcasting on 88.7 FM to Kilkenny City and environs. This is Community Radio Kilkenny City.